This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day, carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Fully Managed podcast. Thank you, Jade, so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to start with a game. This game is called Pitch It or Ditch It. So a lot of these are a little bit surrounding AI. I think it's because it's just a hot topic at this point, especially in creative. So I'm just going to give you a scenario. You're going to tell me whether we should pitch it or ditch it. Does that sound good? And you can give your reasoning why, too. Okay. First one is a luxury fashion brand launches an AI stylist that not only recommends outfits, but also critiques your existing wardrobe.
Pitch it.
Yeah? Why?
It's so funny. I was literally speaking to my wife about this morning. I was saying like, I'm not sure if I want to wear a bright yellow jumper today. I need to go dark colors. And she's like, apparently ChatGPT do have this as a core feature, and she's been playing with it. So I think, if we can refine that kind of capability, then I think that's wonderful. And she said that the greatest thing about it is obviously people have different skin tones, hair type. And so, having a kind of tailored styling ability, just super quick, I think is fun to do.
Yeah, no, I really like that, especially. I think there's so many times where I want someone's opinion on my outfit, but I can't reach anyone. Like everyone's busy or something. And I'm like, I can't decide on this, and I'm going to take an hour to like flip through 10 other outfits and figure out what. I like that. And it's also, it's a great marketing avenue too, because you can kind of like suggest clothes within your own brand, like while you're going through someone's wardrobe.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, great answer. Next one. A nonprofit wants to run a VR experience where donors can become the cause they're helping. So, for example, like walking a mile in someone else's shoes, like literally.
I think pitch it. Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
I think it's just like a lovely thing to do. Would be interesting to see where that takes people. And I think the more we can do to help in the non-for-profit space in general is a good thing, especially at this time where everyone will be focused on the economy and advancing things with AI, reorging and all these kinds of things. But I think we can't forget about those that don't have pockets and pockets of cash to invest, and doing something interesting in that space.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it is really wonderful that there are like affordable AI solutions to a lot of things that specifically nonprofits or like people that have to be extremely budget conscious are dealing with. And now I think that there's a lot of solutions for that, which is really exciting. I think that maybe a VR experience may be controversial depending on what it's related to, because some nonprofit work is extremely heavy. But I definitely agree for something that is possible and not too extreme for someone to experience. But I definitely, that's the first thing that I thought of. I was like, I don't know for certain causes if this would be something that would be okay. But
that's true. That is a good point.
Okay. Last one. A sneaker company releases a drop only accessible in the metaverse, but the physical sneakers are mailed later, so you kind of get to like experience them in VR as like maybe like a character at, but like you get it later.
Oh, I'm such an optimist.
I know, I love it.
Picture again. Already I'm like visually imagining that shoe and the trainer in the metaverse. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think sometimes there's naysayers on this type of space, but I think going into the unknown, that's the only way we really get to experiment, try new things, find out new ways of working. Yeah, I mean, in the past, I pushed Sky in the UK, which is like Comcast here, in support to like launch a new TV series. It's called Gangs of London, and they wanted to approach a younger audience. We did a NFT campaign, and you know, at the time, a lot of the kind of comments as we were working through conceptually was like, oh, but you know, will people really resonate? Is NFTs a fad? And it's like, you got to go there. You got to go there to know. And if the stats are saying it's not, and yeah, young people are into it, then why not try it? And yeah, it worked really well, and they did it for season 2 and season 3 as well. So metaverse away, why not?
No, I love the optimism and trying new things, because it's,
yeah,
you have to experiment. I mean, like, if you fail, okay, but at least you know that you tried. Like, when you have a vision for something that's really exciting, like, and you're able to implement that, I think it's awesome, especially for that campaign specifically. I don't know, it makes sense to me, because especially people are always wondering like how something looks on them, like before they purchase something. I think that implementation with like fashion and AI to figure out, you know, what looks good on you before you buy it is really great. I don't know how many fashion companies would want to do that, because that might deter people from buying something, but I don't know. I think that it's a great, some people may be unsure and not buy something because they're not sure what it'll look on them. So I think that this is like, if you convince them.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be super interesting.
I love it. So I love your optimism. I'm really excited to get more into learning about your personal journey on this podcast. So first, I just want you to formally introduce yourself, maybe differently than I would, and tell us a little bit about how you got here, like your professional journey, everything up until this point that you think is relevant, and what you're doing right now.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm a creative leader. I've been a ECD at Huge for a year now on Google. Prior to that, so I'm working in New York, and then prior to that, I was in the UK. I was working at an agency called AKQA, which is very similar to Huge. And yeah, I mean, I've kind of flip-flop within the industry. I've worked at sort of like big traditional advertising giants like BBH, DDB, but then also digital gems like the AKQAs, and Huge, also sort of like creative innovation startup agencies. There was my first stint coming out of art school, was a place called Work Club, which was a lot of fun. I also worked at Blast Radius, if anyone knows that agency out of Canada. That was so much fun. They just came to the UK, and I was a senior art director at the time. And a few of us got hired and just thought, let's just go for it. And we had an account each. I think 2 of the guys had Bacardi, and they gave me Starbucks. And then we ended up having to launch it across Europe. And I was in my 20s. There was no creative director. It was really awesome. And again, it was a lot of going into the unknown. You know, a brand like Starbucks, they like to push the boundaries and do the firsts. So it's like social first experiments, doing QR codes in tiny little random formats, to big red cup experiences. And then worked at a really great agency called Hugo and Cat. which was experience design. And I worked on the Sony account there, which was loads of fun. Sony Global, trips to Tokyo, and growing that account in all the kind of different areas that they play in, from camera to mobile, and holistically looking at kind of bits of filmmaking for content creation as well as platform, and different experiences within the website. So I feel very fortunate, I must say. Like I work bloody hard, but I've had an incredible journey so far through the industry.
Oh, well, that is really lovely and wholesome. You're keeping up the positivity throughout this entire time. So speaking from experience, it seems like you really like to push the boundaries. Do you prefer to work on so when you work with a client, do you prefer to work with someone with like maybe a big budget that you're able to kind of push boundaries like monetarily, or maybe someone with a small budget where you kind of have like creative leeway to do whatever, but you're with those budget constrictions?
It's a great question. Do you know what? I find myself interested in both. You know, I like the different challenges that both bring. So with the bigger budget, big accounts, there's a lot of complexity. There's actually a lot of anxiety within the client space. They've got so much going on, and they must crack this. Do you know what I mean? It's like, feels almost like life or death that we need to crack this problem. And in those moments, you're working with a team of maybe like 15 people, could be cross-craft, cross-disciplines. And so you need to be razor focused in order to get everyone marching up the same hill, like have that solid leadership and vision, and get behind the vision and stay behind the vision. I think as a creative or a design leader is like your biggest job. And I think if you can do that in those moments, it's a wonderful ride. But for the most part, I would say 80% of it is pain.
There's probably so many moving parts with big clients as well, like trying to go through people for different things and purposes. Yeah.
But then equally, I would say with the, working with founders, I get so much joy from that because it's so rewarding. It means so much to them. You can feel it, like they're parting with money, which is probably only a fraction of the bigger company. But to them, that is like, it could be coming out of like their mortgage. Do you know what I mean? It's like every penny has to be a value spend. And so it's a different kind of focus. It's a lot more heart driven, and can be equally as painful. But but again, like when you kind of get to a good rhythm and process with it, you probably then it's gonna lead you to a good end result. I love both avenues actually. I'd probably say equally.
Yeah, I can say that there's like scary like parts of both, but there's also like restrictions to both as well. And then there's positive things about both too. So like for the smaller, I think like I talk to agencies a lot, especially founders, and I think they're sometimes so proud of their baby that they've created that they have like sometimes a difficult time working with people that they bring in to help them, even if they're actively asking for help. But at the same time, I think that that's something that's so wonderful because like when someone's baby is on the line, depending on like this project being successful, it's that much more amazing when you get to see the outcome of that. I think that's something that's really cool.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And it's always like a careful balance. It's like, don't smother the baby. Stop smothering the baby.
There's like,
now we must move on to this part of changing.
You need to be a little humble about your baby. But so you mentioned the like how to kind of structure your team so that you can get through certain things like this. Like, how do you create this structure and workflows to kind of protect your space for innovation and like making sure that you're getting things done in a normal amount of time, all of that, all of those factors?
Yeah. I mean, again, so it's so interesting when you're working with founders. I tend to not change the way in which I work. So setting the vision, like this is what we'll do, but then you suddenly have to put on different hats, and so, like that image of like a person with like a drum on their back and like all these.
Yeah.
So like
one man band.
Well, actually, that's you now, Jade. Now you're going to do this. You're going to write out all these questions for the immersion session. Oh, now you're going to look at logos. Now you're going to craft it. Like you're having to do all those jobs which you would usually have a whole team orchestrated and coming together like an orchestra together. So yeah, I think it probably makes more sense with the bigger projects. I think it's just being really clear and concise with what you need. Communicate that well, because I think if people are behind the vision, they believe in it, they're like, this makes sense to me, then you're fine. People then want to just do well by that. So then I think it's just really important to make it clear, like today we are doing this, tomorrow we will move on to that, next week it's all about this. And I think people really appreciate that, and we shouldn't be fearful to be direct. And actually, it's more helpful for people to know what the expectation is. Because sometimes I'll speak to creative directors and they'll go, I don't know what happened to the team today. Like the Figma cursor hasn't moved for like 6 hours. Like, what are they doing? I was like, we never assume the worst, because especially if you're a great agency, people are self-starters. They love what they do. They're probably just looking up, sourcing imagery or sourcing fonts. But if they're not clear that actually we needed to fill this Figma board, we needed to like show all the different variants and exploration because we've got a client session, tomorrow, if we don't clearly articulate that, then that's where it starts to fall apart a bit, and it becomes a bit of a rocky experience.
Yeah, no, I can completely understand that. I think that like a level of structure and like being goal oriented is always really important for a team, because I think that a lot of people or like creative directors are worried about stifling their team's creativity by like creating any kind of parameters, like structure like that. But I think that there's an even balance that you can have of like, we expect this by this time, but I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to micromanage you on the way to just this goal. Just try your best to make sure that this goal is met by this time, because that's what we need to do.
Yeah. And I think there's also like a level of professionalism needed throughout. I think it's hard for creatively driven people. It means we're driven by emotion. And so when you're in a big project, lots of spinning plates, and then you go to the client meeting and they're like, I don't like it. I don't like it because of this. This isn't right. That is so tough to take. But when you rally the team around again, you can't vent. Venting is not professional in my mind. Take that venting to a safe space with a peer, but never put that on the team, because, we can be vulnerable, of course, and you can say, oh, look, guys, we didn't hit the mark, blah, blah, blah. But it always has to be about moving the process forward constantly. Having that sense of momentum is really important, so that people don't go, I didn't, it's my fault, I didn't do this thing right. The team should never feel that. It's a joint activity. We're collaborating and pushing forward together. So I think that kind of nuance that just sort of happens throughout, usually on Slack, is one of the most important things to have a successful project.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. So if venting to you is not like for a professional environment, how do you like top down your team if they like worked really hard on something that they're clearly upset that wasn't accepted or like met in the way in which they wanted to by a client.
Yeah, I think this is another interesting nuance, because also I often get the sense, like creative directors in particular, they have this moment of like there's momentum, but then there's also rushing, which that's the, pendulum going too far. And so cranking out orders without letting the team express themselves, express what they think might be next, holding that space to listen and actually potentially pivot a bit of what you had in your mind is so important to keep the vision going, to keep everyone together. I often hear that because, I'll spend the majority of the time speaking to like the directors, but every now and again, don't forget, Slack is an open forum. I might get a team member, it could be a junior designer sometimes, a midway, who reach out and go, hey, this person's been really tough on us and they're not listening to me. That's what I hear the most, is like, they didn't listen to us. Like, we felt we should have done a bit of this. And actually, there is the time pressure, but you hold that line. If you feel like actually what that person said, there is some value to that, and we should at least try it in the next round, then you're in control of the craft. So you can go back to the PM, say, I need another day, say client can wait, even if we're on the back foot with the client still, but it probably even more so, that is the time to say, we're pushing out a week, I'm not going to speak to them this week, because the team, we need to spend time as a team to get it right. That would be my advice. And it sometimes feels a little bit scary, but time is where the magic happens. So if you feel you need it, then yeah, you're the leader, so you've got to make that happen.
Yeah, no, that is really sound advice, because I think that a lot of people are fearful of like pushing a deadline or moving something when they have those pressures, or they're afraid of losing a client or whatever it may be. But if you're not proud of your work, or you're not like producing quality work because of a deadline, and that's solely the reason, then maybe that does need to be pushed. Maybe it's like not, you have to be realistic and transparent with your client and also your team, and like be fair to them and what they can do.
Yeah. And I think it's about how you frame it as well. Like, if you say to the client, we could present to you on Thursday, maybe it's like a Tuesday, we could present to you on Thursday, but to be honest, if we present to you next Tuesday, you're going to get even better work, you're going to get a better result. Like, they'd be mad to say no, wouldn't they? To wait.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure like there's certain expectations. Yeah, like how do you deal with those situations in which you phrase something like that, but someone doesn't respond to it well, especially like maybe a larger client in which like maybe they're expecting something on a specific day at a specific time and they have no other time to do it.
Yeah, I think the trick is the pre-huddle. So pre-huddling with your account person and your program or your product manager, and being aligned. Like, this is sharing with you, this is what the team need, this is what the craft needs. And so that's what we're going to say to the client. So then whether you deliver that to the client or one of the other members, maybe the account person does, I think you're there present. But if the client came back and was not into it, I personally would say nothing and wait for the other counterparts. Again, we're driven by emotion. Anything that's going to come out of my mouth is not going to be constructive. It's going to be like, well, this is bloody what we're doing. An account person who's, they're there to make the relationship smooth. They're going to say it correctly. And the program person will have the logic flow so they'll probably work out a clever way that actually we still hit the same deadline, but we're going to shave time. When we said we were going to do motion here, we're actually going to bring it forward. Or, they're very clever at making the workflow work to what we need it to be. That's part of their role as well.
Yeah. So No, I really like that. I mean, especially, I think there's really something to be respected about, like, just knowing who you are. Like, you know, in that space, like, maybe it's not the best choice for you to speak in that situation because, you know, everyone is, especially, yeah, being driven by emotion, specifically where creative is concerned. It's really hard to not be met properly, especially when you put so much work into something and you did what they wanted. And sometimes people just don't like something, and that is unavoidable sometimes, unfortunately. But if you did everything correctly, it's really hard to take that because it's not criticism as if you did something wrong. It's just, you know, opinion criticism. It's just opinion-based criticism, which sucks that much more.
But yeah, and I think also a mantra that I really love that I got when I was at AKQA, it's like a real principle for them and how they work, is coming from the top. Like Ajaz, who was the founder, he would say feedback is a gift. And so when you frame it in your mind that way, it's so different. You know, you just kind of like hit everything. Because some days it might be that, to your point, like they just say something and it's hard to deal with that. It's like, oh, they just don't like it. This is the third round. But other times it might be a whole scroll. Like I've had clients where they just like to email like a whole laundry list of tiny little changes. When you see it as like feedback it's a gift because they've taken the time to write that email. They want the work to be great. Our job is to make great work what we envision from, you know, what we set out to do, but it's also client satisfaction. And it's annoying because it's like sometimes we don't believe in what the client is saying, but fundamentally, if they don't come away thinking that was great, we failed. So I think, yeah, there's definitely been moments where I've received feedback from a client or maybe even internally and it's hard and I just go, feedback is a gift. I'm going to take a moment to digest, make a cup of tea, and freaking go for it and address all of it.
No, and I appreciate that sentiment and being real about it too, because like I think that everyone at a level has trouble receiving feedback. And I think that especially when they did on paper everything right in the scenario. But I think that to your point about like someone making a detailed list of things to like change or whatever, yeah, that might be really difficult and possibly frustrating to read through and have to go back and do all these things and this work. But at the same time, yeah, that to your point, that person took the time out of their day to write that rather than, I think if anything, it would maybe be more frustrating when someone writes something really vague, but they're just upset about it. Like they're just angry about whatever the output is, but they're not explaining properly what they want instead. And that is, I think, sometimes, or maybe all the time, harder to work with because you feel that they don't care enough to really tell you what they actually want. They just want you to fix a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, and that's not to say we shouldn't be boundaried. And, you know, when you get written feedback, it's great because if you have a client who's swirling a bit, it's sort of like, well, actually last week you said this and that's why we did that. It helps you build the rationale. If you've got a client who doesn't tell you anything, it's actually quite hard to keep progressing forward. Whereas, yeah, if you have those kind of nuggets of where they may have said something, maybe forgot, or they kind of just go on a hamster wheel of madness, you can go, hey, look, we tried that, remember? That's why we've gone this way. This is why we're on this road kind of vibe. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I really like kind of being, being realistic about what is, you know, there's unfair feedback, that's for sure. I mean, like, there's things in which, you know, I personally, I just like an explanation for why someone is giving something. So, like, when there's detailed feedback, not only is it easy to follow, in which you can go through your work and know exactly what you need to change. Whereas when you get something vague or not descriptive, then you're kind of just left with, okay, I'm just going to do what I think you want me to do, and then I might meet an unhappy person again later. And that's what...
keep questioning it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
One thing people joke about is like, make it pop, which I think actually comes more internally. When people are like,
make it pop.
Yeah.
I don't know. What does that mean for you? It might mean something different for me. Like, arbitrary terms are really hard to deal with in the creative world.
Yeah.
So I like to end all our podcasts with like forward-looking, like more something that like you're looking towards the future. So since we're coming up on time, I want to ask you, we didn't talk about it much other than in the game, but in the age of AI, I think a lot of people in the creative industry are kind of wary and a bit anxious about different things happening in the future. Do you have any advice for maybe younger designers, creative leaders, any agency folks that are like concerned about AI disruption, and like any advice on how they can stay relevant and valuable and like feel creatively fulfilled? I know that's a loaded question, but
yeah, it's definitely a tricky time. I would say a close friend had this concept. It's a bit of a psychology thing, but I think it's probably very helpful during this period. And there was some research found that to be happy in the workplace, you need to be kind of like doing and growing and learning. And so whilst we're at a point where people probably on YouTube doing loads of tutorials, learning stuff, quickly, I think there's that. So it's like upskill for sure, do that. But also know that you need a level of autonomy. So if you're on a project and you don't feel like you've got ownership, that's a problem. So you need to either speak to someone and say, look, I need ownership of this space, because that's what's going to give you confidence and help you grow. And if you can't get it, I'm just on one of those projects where I just don't have any autonomy, then have a side project, have an outlet where you're making a film with Gen AI or something where you own that result, because that is going to be part of the process that we feel that sense of ownership. And then the last one is relatability. So I'm really curious about how different people learn. Right now, there's a lot of remote working happening. Like I said, people going to YouTube to get their source of tutorials. But I think there are a large proportion of people who still learn by being around others. Like, I'm definitely like that. I much prefer to have a virtual call with a friend and be like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing. I can't get it to do what I want. And then I can also say, how's your weekend? How's life? I like it to be very personable. And so I think, just pay attention to that element of yourself and your personality. How do you like to learn, and how do you like to relate to the team, and build that into your weekly routine? I think that's kind of maybe a helpful way to go forward.
No, I love that. I agree. Just because I think that a lot of people are so used to sometimes doing something in a certain way that they don't realize that maybe it's not working for them. In like an educational standpoint, even like in work, I feel like I agree with you that we feel fulfilled from learning and like advancing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like going up a position, but just feeling like we're going somewhere in what we're able to do, and that things are different. And it is really hard for some people to, get burnout and susceptible, especially in the agency world where many people are wearing many hats, to be able to understand yourself and what like really works for your needs. And I think that, to be a truly successful professional, you kind of need to understand that and like come to peace with what that best way of learning is.
Yeah. And I think never forget or disregard what you love doing. you may be on a project which is more technical, for example, might not be fully what you're into, but you're learning and you're growing, and you've got to pay the bills, right? And at any point you may get swayed onto another account or another project, but if you still have that desire to do something else, then I massively encourage people to do that. Like, now is the time to be a part of the journey, to, have that moment where you look back and go, I did that crazy thing when like AI was just starting out. That's what we should all be striving for, is like these cool, rich experiences. And like, even for myself, that doesn't go away ever, I don't think, if you're a creative. And yeah, speaking about pro bonos at the beginning, but I worked on a climate change music video. Took about 6 to 9 months, actually. Like, going back to baby analogies, like birthing a baby. And it was painful. It was hard work, but I was committed. I was like, this is a super interesting story. There was this musician back in the UK who'd written this climate song, and it got to number 4 in the music charts at Christmas, but no radio station would play it because she was a climate activist. I could see her going nuts on Instagram, go BBC, play my song. And so I was like, I feel the pain, like I want to help. So I wrote to her and I said, look, I've had a look at your music video on YouTube, and it's too much. It's like, intense scenes of, nuclear plants and that type of stuff. I'd love to do you a really nice animation if you're up for it. And she was like, okay, you have the rights to my song, you do your thing. And I was like, amazing. So I went on this journey, and then I just got speaking to people at Huge, at the agency, and someone was like, I'll help you, work through on VO3, which is Google's tool, and then obviously Runway and a couple of others. And then we were like, we need because the song's about 2 bluebirds. So I was like, we need the character design. And so I knew someone from the Colombian team was able to illustrate really well. And so they were like, yeah, I can do it for you on Procreate. I'm like, perfect, let's do that. Then I was speaking to someone on the plane when I was work traveling, a data scientist, and he was like, we could do live data. I'm like, really? And this is the beauty, is like, when you have an idea, it's not really yours. It's like, it's a thing that you're putting into the universe.
Yeah.
Other people, if their energy matches, they will just gravitate. It's a joy for them to be part of it. It's a joy for them to spend an evening doing it and being off Netflix for a bit. And it's how we grow. And so, yeah, it's Gen AI, live data, coded in about a day. I art directed the site, but it's called We Tried, the song. And if you go wetried.world, you'll see it. And Little Black Book did an incredible write-up. Ad Age covered it. It was a bit of an average write-up, but I feel like they really captured what we were trying to do. And I think make time to experiment. But if you're the type of person that doesn't want to do it alone, then don't. Talk to people and do a little project with a friend or a couple of folk. And just enjoy the making.
I love that. That was such a beautifully succinct way to end the podcast because it was so wholesome and also really wonderful. But I really appreciate you joining me today. I think you were so incredibly positive, and in the way that you talk about creativity and also managing your teams, I think is really wonderful, and a way in which I'd like to promote other environments to be like. So I thank you so much for joining me and chatting with me today, and talking about your experience.
Amazing, thank you. Well, the positivity definitely comes from the American culture. So again, I'm thankful for that.
That's shocking, but I really appreciate it. Thanks for the shout out. I am genuinely surprised about that. What's happening now? I do appreciate that. That makes me feel more optimistic to take on the world. So thank you so much.
Amazing. Yeah, thank you.
Everyone for watching. We'd be nothing without you. So I hope that you enjoy. You check out Jade in the description, and you check out other episodes. Thank you so much. Bye.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest, and to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.